I'd like to welcome everybody for taking the time to spend with us on this exciting and interesting topic on basically on how we see business innovation and retail with the help of Google Cloud Technologies. My name is Boris Bleich. I am the commercial director here at Computas APS, and I'll spend a couple of minutes here in the beginning just to introduce the topic, and we'll have some subject matter experts explain their way through the rest of the webinar. The agenda for today will be very much divided in these areas. I will give you our first insights on how we see the COVID-19 impacts and how it's affected the retail industry within the last 2 months. We will then have Google Cloud explain why retail is important to them, and get into some concrete use cases and scenarios where Google Cloud has delivered some excellent solutions. And then we'll get into really talking about best practices based on our experience in the retail industry in the Nordics, and how to create high-end forecasting models. And we'll finish it all off with how you can get started tomorrow. So the speakers for today, besides myself, will be our senior data scientist, Gabriel Casas from Computas, who has spent the last couple of years working at some of the leading retailers in the Nordics, both as a data scientist within the organizations and as a consultant today, working for us. So we're very excited to hear some real life use cases and scenarios. And joining us today, we're very happy and delighted to have Henrik Hammer from Google Cloud Denmark, a customer engineer that has spent several years working with some of the largest retailers in the Danish industry, and will give his view on how Google Cloud can help catalyze the innovation thought process. A little bit around the practicalities. We'll try to pick up any questions you have. Please do post them in the chat, and try to answer them at the end of the presentation. If there's anything that you want to ask us, just unmute, and we'll do our best to get a decent answer back. We will be recording this, and hopefully some of you can actually share this within your organization, and we'll be posting this on a YouTube channel, so it will be on demand. And I see many have already muted themselves, and yes, let's get going. All right, just very short Computas numbers. One of the leading innovative partners here in the Nordics, and has spent the last 35 years basically within the field of software development, and has excelled in thriving on agile development methodologies, and working with some large projects today in the Nordics on making sure that innovation is being delivered and executed. We have over the last couple of years embarked on many Google Cloud inspired projects, and that has become a huge part of what we try to advise our customers around, and have maintained application development, machine learning specializations, which is a blue stamp on who we are and where our expertise lie. These are some of the customers that we have been working with the last 2 decades. Primarily, we have been focused on large public customers, and then later on working with the oil and gas and energy sector. And from there, we've expanded to finance, insurance, and finally the retailers of the Nordics, which we will try to to transcend today the experiences we've had so far with bringing innovative solutions to their world. Okay, just to set the kind of the stage for what we're going to be talking about, I think there's no surprise, at least over the last couple of weeks, months, how the world has changed and the impact all have been faced by the corona outbreak, and probably none more than the retailers and the consumer good companies of the world. And I've tried to illustrate here how, on one hand, many have experienced stores being closed, employees unfortunately having to be sent home. But on the other hand, we've also seen trends and opportunities arise, and some of those we'll try to kind of put into words and how you can grasp these with the technology that's provided for today. And some of the first insights that have been published have come from of course, the Chinese markets, as they were some of the first, or the first region to be involved in the corona outbreak, and slowly also have managed to reboot and restart their markets. And PricewaterhouseCoopers has done a excellent paper where the stuff we're going to be sending the material to all of you, and you will be able to find a link and read it. But basically, it has a very strong insight in how the outbreak, of course, has caught both consumers actually, and of course retailer consumer goods companies off guard. But tries actually to emphasize how this should be actually seen as also an opportunity for many, and what needs to be focused on to succeed in that in the future. And basically, they've done these two models, which are really to the point, and try to explain, on one hand, the challenges, and they've grouped them into three primary areas that have impacted the retailers and the consumer goods. One is the short term, of course, behavior in the purchase, consumption, demand, etc., where some retailers have just experienced not only a reduction in willingness to spend, but almost a complete zero reduction to spend. They also talk a little bit around important areas like inventory turnover and just the paradox of still having to sometimes think ahead. At the same time, you have a lot of funding gap and continuous costs that are still expanding. And then, of course, the fine balance between some having to close stores and others having to maintain their e-commerce platforms, which is also presented even for those who have been 100% e-commerce, presented challenges in terms of limitations just in the tooling and the systems it's working with today to address some of the obvious problems. And then on the other hand, they're really trying to put some wording into what are the opportunities, and if you are a retailer or a consumer good company, what should you focus on today and in the coming months and years to really make sure that you grasp the opportunity. So one is the people aspect, and this is really interesting read around how, for one, we have to remember us employees and make sure that we are caring and understanding the situations our employees are in, to pay attention to their individual difficulties and strengthen the enterprise cohesion, basically. And on the other hand, we have to also understand and embrace a corporate social responsibility to enhance consumer trust, but at the same time be aware that the companies are today responsible also for keeping consumer panic in check, basically. Another very interesting read on the opportunities is around the goods, and here refer to physical assets, commodities, and cash assets, but basically how we have to be aware that speeding up decision making and being able to respond to short-term irregular demand for certain merchandises is going to be very, very important. We have to optimize the supply chain and try to reduce unnecessary costs. And they give great examples on just paying attention to nearly expired and expired commodities. Yeah, and really refine planning of funds. And finally, one of the areas they're mentioning, which is very important to the talk we're going to have today, is on the scenario aspects, which is basically divided into creating a safer and kind of a more, reassuring in-store shopping environment for customers, and at the same time accelerating the online transformation with, for instance, further focus on logistics and delivery. And some of the last things they're actually pointing to, which will be very important to the topic we're going to have today, is actively to seek innovative paths and transform. Well, not only to survive, but basically they have a great point in if you want to keep a competitive advantage and grow your business, this is the way you should be looking. So I'll finish up the intro just by putting a big line under that. The world is not the same, and the questions are today for business units: are you ready to fit the digital planning revolution? How do you deliver insights in this sea of changes in the demand and consumption patterns? How do you speed up decision making, response to short-term irregular demand? And how do we assure knowledge insight stays in the company by building these great agile and data machine learning driven models? So I think I've spent my minutes, Henrik, and I would pass the torch to you, and please take us into Google Cloud's view on retail.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well, keeping well in these days. So I've been asked by Computas to share why retail is important to Google and what we do there. My name is Henrik Hammer. I'm a customer engineer. That's a technical customer-facing role. And I've spent a lot of time, in particular in the analytics area, with retailers over the last 10 years. And today I would like to actually start off with first some more trends, some local trends that Google has collected, and then share my point of view of what is it that we do with retailers. So what you're looking at here is a so-called mobility report. And based on people who have opted in to enable location services on their mobile phones, Google has collected aggregated and anonymous data from people's movements in local communities. So you can see parks and retail, recreation, and other communities here in the capital region of Denmark. If you look at the link down there, you can actually download a report for your area all over the world. And the charts show differences in people's movements or where they hang out between week 5 before the COVID-19 outbreak and then recently. And they are updated every week or two. And I thought it would be interesting to share some local data because, as we can all see, things have changed these days. And retailers are experiencing a significant drop. So people are not visiting physical brick and mortar shops as much as they did before the outbreak, and we all know that. So we need to relate to this new reality. So feel free to visit the link and download the reports in the future. They are updated continuously. So the other thing I wanted to share with you today is why retail is important to Google. So retail is one of our 6 focus industries in Google, and we are working with retailers on 3 main initiatives that you see here. And each initiative has got some levers, some technology enablers that I will go through. And at the bottom, you can see some of the top retailers who are currently on a journey with Google Cloud. If we start with the first one, so over the last 21 years, Google has built out a global cloud infrastructure and network, which today powers 9 cloud consumer services, with each more than 1 billion users. And you probably all know search and YouTube being some of them. And there's a lot of peaks in demand for those services, but as a user, you don't notice it because Google's infrastructure is elastic. And we scale those services up and down with demand. And retailers, big and small, they can leverage the same benefits as they run their e-commerce solutions. So they don't experience blackouts or have to invest in overcapacity to handle peaks. And I have some use cases here that will show you some of the benefits that you can experience as you move your e-commerce store to Google Cloud. So today we work with 7 out of the world's 10 largest retailers and help them run smooth operations in their e-commerce stores on Google Cloud. And we also help them handle peaks like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and recently also the change in demand that we are all experiencing these days. So the next initiative is all about harnessing data to help retailers deliver unique customer and brand experiences. And in terms of technology, Gabrielle will talk about the first one, namely building intelligent data platforms. So I will just touch upon the second one, which is data warehouse modernization. And we help retailers move to our BigQuery cloud data warehouse. Retailers move to BigQuery because coming from a conventional data warehouse, they typically experience between 80 and 100x better performance at a much lower TCO. They can also analyze more data since BigQuery scales to petabytes, and it has got ML built in, so machine learning built in, so you don't have to move the data out of the data warehouse to get insights and then move the results back in again. So they get instant results, and they can get insight on what happens right now in their stores and not with a significant delay. So most of the retailers on this slide, they run BigQuery either entirely or partly for their data warehouse operations. And the last initiative is all about improving margins through better operational and capital efficiency to help retailers stand out in the competition. And that involves running SAP in a more agile way, helping retailers to adopt SAP HANA. And it also involves leveraging AI in the contact center. We have a dedicated solution for that called Contact Center AI, which increases self-service rates and enable live agents to close cases faster. And we integrate with the major contact center solutions in the market. And the final enabler here is the work transformation through our G Suite productivity software. And it also includes Google Meet, which is actually what we use right now for this webinar. So I hope you enjoy the experience. And I have picked out 3 cases today, which I'll go through. And I'll start with e-commerce migration. So the first case, and you can read about it in the link down here, is LUSH, who managed to migrate their on-prem e-commerce store to Google Cloud in 22 days. And they did so because they, as many, unfortunately, many retailers do, they have issues handling peaks. So they had blackouts and serious delays, which meant a lot of lost sales. But they are also, and they are also part of a new trend. They are very environmentally conscious brands, and they wanted to use a cloud, which was also had a renewable energy profile. And so they picked Google Cloud because Google Cloud has been carbon neutral since 2007. And it is very much in our strategy to only use renewable energy. So most of the energy that is sourced for Google Cloud comes from wind, and a part comes from solar. So LUSH is an example of a customer who have migrated their e-commerce operations to Google Cloud and getting a smoother ride. The other case is in the second initiative column, right? So this is about data. Perhaps some of you know Ocado. Ocado is the world's biggest online grocery retailer. So they deliver groceries in the UK. And they are quite advanced when it comes to data and AI. They use it everywhere in the operations. For instance, they use natural language understanding to prioritize customer emails. It really helps them in addressing, upset customers who haven't got their deliveries or customer questions and so on much faster, and address them in the right priority. They also do something rather intelligent, I think, because they pre-populate customers' shopping carts with items that they're most likely to purchase. So they use recommendation models to actually find out, well, based on what you bought before and what we see other customers buying, perhaps you want to add dishwasher tablets to your basket or some other item which is perhaps particular to you. And that has led to a 10 times increase in sales of thousands of SKUs for Ocado. They use AI across a lot of what they do, and there are, if you look for Ocado and Google Cloud on the internet, you can see several YouTube videos and read more about them. So the last one, I have a few slides on this one because I think it's quite interesting. This is Home Depot. Home Depot, we can compare that in Denmark to perhaps a Sylvan or a Bauhaus. And they have more than 2,000 stores across the US. And they have deployed BigQuery to actually stream point of sales data in real time from their stores, so they can see what is happening right now, what is selling right now. But that also gives them insight to what is not selling right now. Where is it that we perhaps have stock out? So they use about 50 signals. And if you go to the YouTube link down there, you can actually see, there are several YouTube videos out there on the internet that you can watch to see how they actually, what insights they're looking at. But so they have built a machine learning model that predicts shelf outs, and they have reduced lost sales by 16%. And that translates into a very, very large number for them. And before implementing the solution, they went through several considerations, right? How should you actually implement this? And one consideration was adding labor. The other one was using advanced computer vision to find where is no products on the shelves. And the last one was using a lot of sensors. There were a lot of companies out there selling sensors to retailers. But they actually found out that they had the data in their data warehouse. So it turned out that they could actually come out with a very precise machine learning model using the data they already had. And I think they have also implemented in a smart way, because each morning the machine learning model, it generates a list, a so-called smart list. So if you look at the top here, you can see that there's an urgent work order here for the shopping assistant. That drywall repair is probably out of, there's no product in shelf. And then they can go to that location, and they can actually confirm, you see that to the right, was the algorithm, was it right? Was the prediction right or not? And then this knowledge, it feeds back and retrains the machine learning model, so it gets more precise in predicting that item for that particular store. And this solution has really helped them prevent stockouts. And you can watch more about it on YouTube, of course. So that was the last case I had. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Gabrielle, who will talk more about this technology enabler, namely building intelligent data platforms. So thank you.
Okay. Oh, let's go to the beginning of the presentation. Okay, hi everyone. Happy to be here. Yeah, I'm a senior data scientist in Computas, and I can begin by telling you a little bit about my professional experience. I have a background in engineering, and throughout my career, I've ended up working on multiple occasions in forecasting projects. In the oil and gas industry in Norway, working with oil wells to forecast production, or the manufacturing industry in Mexico, forecasting breakdowns of critical machinery and production plants. So the common denominator here is that forecasts are made to help make better decisions. If you know how much oil you will produce next week, at least back in the day when oil was worth something, then you can set up the refinery for optimal production conditions. If you know that you will have a critical number of breakdowns next month, then perhaps you can prep a spare parts strategy or perform preventive maintenance. So from engineering, I made a big leap and started working in the retail sector, and have been doing so now for some years, also working with the forecasting projects. Yeah, I started working in an e-commerce company called Boost.com. And in Computas, I've worked on multiple projects, but most recently on a pricing project with IKEA. So it's the same thing here. Forecasts are made are needed for decision making. In the case shown in the slide, do you spend $1 to discount a product that will give a specific sales uplift, or is that dollar better spent on an ad that will provide a different uplift? So in isolation, the case I just mentioned is a decision that one can take time to study and then make a good decision. However, the challenge in retail comes with scale. you're potentially facing pricing decisions for thousands of products that might only be on the shelf for a few months before they are replaced with entirely new products. So when it comes to something as large scale, but as important as pricing decisions, it was clear to me early on that specialized solutions were required. So pricing is important. Decisions on pricing will affect demand, and that will in turn affect revenue, profitability, your inventory management, and of course logistics. Okay, so let's get right into a case study for a real-life forecasting project in retail. So the next slides are mostly inspired by a project we have been working on recently, and I will take a minute to explain this chart, which summarizes what the project is about. So on the x-axis you have time, and on the y-axis you have a number of discontinued items in stock. So each line in this chart represents a different region for this particular retailer. So their goal at the end of each quarter is to have less than 50 discontinued items in stock, which will allow space for new items to come into their warehouse. So essentially, the challenge is for this retailer in particular is how to price these set of products in order to, one, maximize the profit, two, clear the inventory to allow space for new items, and at the same time, make sure that this strategy is accessible to all the different business regions. So over the next 3 slides, I'm going to discuss some of the solutions that we typically run into for a project of this type. The first is the famous and often dreaded spreadsheet. So spreadsheet will typically connect to a database, import data, and perform calculations, output, visualizations. So while it is a cost-effective solution, there are drawbacks. Often it is developed and updated by one person and stored in that person's local hard drive. So the solution does not promote collaboration or knowledge sharing. And it is often a black box, a heavy spreadsheet that only the developer knows how to interact with and update. And it might not be easy to adapt to a growing or changing business. So in summary, it's not always the right tool for the job. So then there's forecasting software. So there are some great software solutions out there. At least I've used some very good ones in my time in the oil and gas industry. The disadvantages, well, licenses can be expensive, and that expense can make the process undemocratic because there is an entry barrier, which would be cost. There's a question of whether or not it's bespoke to the business. And well, will the developers of the software solution be around as long as your business and be there to provide the tech support that you need? And then there is that key point that the very important and often difficult step of data extraction, transformation, and cleaning still needs to be done in order that so that the software can be fed with that data. And well, this is also something that we've run into, which is why I'm including it here. A cloud solution that, although it is on cloud, it's not using all the advantages that the cloud has to offer, leading to often unnecessary cloud spend, while not taking advantages of the automation, scalability, and the machine learning tools a platform like GCP can offer. So this is where I'm going here, and that is to use the Google Cloud Platform Toolbox to structure the knowledge and experience contained within an organization in order to build a lean, agile, and bespoke forecasting solution. In other words, or essentially, take all the wisdom and knowledge contained in that spreadsheet solution and make it into a lean, scalable, collaboration-friendly, and automated solution. The advantages, well, it enables collaboration, it's bespoke to your business, it's cost-effective with a pay-for-what-you-use pricing model, it's built on open source software, and in my experience, I think it is the right tool for difficult pricing projects like the one that so many retailers are facing. The disadvantage, well, there is that learning curve. It's certainly not easy for any organization without experience to build a cloud-based project from the bottom up. But this is precisely where experts in cloud solutions come in, like Computas, with domain-specific knowledge and experience with these type of projects to help any retailer get started. So how do you build a forecasting project of this type? So best practice tells us that these steps are very important, and they are. It's a pyramid because the foundation has to be solid, the base being data collection, storage, and cleaning. Once that is in place and solid, then you can begin with the value-adding steps, such as analytics and machine learning. So these are the type of systems that we were building for the retail sector, which are based on the pyramid that I just showed. These systems consist of the following components. On the very left side is the data lake, which is based on the excellent Google BigQuery service, basically importing the data that you will need from whichever source, such as your transactional data, inventory stock data, your CRM system, or customer interaction data, such as data coming in from Google Analytics or your reviews, emails, surveys, etc. Next step would be your feature repository, cleaning and transforming that data that you have coming in from your data lake. For example, combining customer order and product data and creating customer categories, combining order data with Google Analytics data and getting conversion rates, or applying natural language processing to customer communications and getting customer satisfaction metrics. Next step would be the descriptive analytics hub, consisting of your BI tool of choice, which will link easily to your feature repository in BigQuery. Finally, there is a predictive modeling component, which gets a little more complex, but I will break it down over the next few slides. So applying the best practice pyramid to the system, you can see how we make sure that it's all here. So here's the conceptual workflow for a machine learning forecasting model. The model is trained using historical data, which is stored in BigQuery, and the model will output two very key and important things. One, price suggestion, and two, the expected number of items sold at that price. If that price suggestion meets your business goals, then you can pull the trigger on the pricing strategy. Otherwise, you modify model parameters and you have another round until your business goals are met. So here's some example results. In this case in particular, the goal was to increase margin with a minimal effect on sales volume. In other words, we were targeting specifically price inelastic products. In the case here that we're looking at, we were looking at a group of 10,000 products. So what we have here is essentially an A/B test. The same group of products in similar markets, and the dotted line you see in these charts is when the experiment started, and that's when you see the divergence in the left side with the average discount. So the quantity sold, which is the plot on the right side, was affected, yet the correlation still remained between the two regions. So was this a successful experiment? Well, it depends on your business goals. In terms of profitability, yes, but you did lose sales volume. So if volume is critical, then of course model parameters can be modified, and the model would output a less aggressive discount reduction, which would have less of an effect on the sales volumes. So why is machine learning important? Well, in the previous example, we were looking at 10,000 distinct products. So making pricing decisions on that many products is not something that any human should be doing on a weekly basis. And that's precisely what this model was doing. So with machine learning, you can empower algorithms with your domain knowledge, your data, and GCP gives you the tools to make it all happen. So some of the lessons learned I have from my time working with forecasting projects. The importance of access to data, access to the models, access to the results and the tools across the whole organization. It's very frustrating when the knowledge sits with one person in a spreadsheet in one hard drive. The Google Cloud Platform naturally promotes sharing and collaboration. The importance of bespoke models made specifically for your business rather than bending sideways to make a standardized software work for you. The ability to adapt to change. Just look at the situation now. Many retailers are just seeing their online sales explode. A lean and flexible approach that allows your forecasting solutions to pick up those changes quickly. And finally, the learning curve. It's certainly possible to read through all the documentation yourself and set up a system like this under one's own initiative. But if you can get help, it can be done sooner rather than later. So this is what I have for you today. I'm going to hand it over to Boris for some information on how to get started.
Yes, thank you, Gabriel, and Henrik, of course. Yeah, I can take the presentation if that's needed, no problem. Please do post any questions if you do have. We'll just spend a few seconds here on actually explaining how you can go from what Henrik and Gabriel has been pointing to actually next steps. So basically, we have tremendous experience in trying to really get close to our customers' reality and their use cases. And this usually starts up with a talk and going for a workshop. And in these times, we have actually experimented a lot with the online approach, and there's excellent tooling, and we can actually do these things with you. So basically, the workshop will be tailored and have specific goals on, first of all, going a little bit more deeper in terms of providing insights to possibilities of using Google Cloud, and within that, interesting subjects such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and how you can utilize these for the modern foundation for data-driven models, analytics, etc. Some of the stuff Henrik was mentioning earlier on. This gives a very good kind of alignment between the business units, the IT departments, and us as well, having us in the same call or in the same room. Then we'll go a little bit deeper as well on sharing some best practices on the, for instance, high-end forecasting model that Gabriel was showcasing. And then finally, the most important thing I think of these workshops, or the workshop, is actually taking a first dive into your reality and identifying valuable use cases that will be kind of a, well, taking a very big elephant and cutting into pieces and really understanding where to begin and how to succeed with the moving. So yeah, everybody who's been on this call will be offered an opportunity to reach out, and we can take some initial talks around how you view your world when it comes to innovative mindsets and driving new and great opportunities for retailers. That's all we had today. And if there's any questions, now is the time. Otherwise, we'll be sending out the material and the recordings so you can share them with your colleagues if you found the topics interesting. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll stick around if anyone is a little bit shy of asking any questions.